which you all are members. So, as part of our endeavor for continued professional development and bringing the luminaries and distinguished, practitioners and professionals on board for hearing from them and having an opportunity to interact, we have with us Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. I would take this opportunity to introduce Professor Mashelkar. Professor Mashelkar is National Research Professor and has been the Director General of CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. I'm sure most of you must be knowing. In addition to Chairman of National Innovation Foundation and also the President of Indian National Science Academy. He's a well-known figure for 16 high-powered Mashelkar committees that he has chaired, and also known for his global academic honors with 44 universities from around the world, having honored him with honorary doctorate. He has bagged 60 plus awards, including the prestigious TWAS Lenovo Science Prize, the highest science prize by the World Academy of Science, Business Week USA Award of Star of Asia at the hands of George Bush Sr. and J.R.D. Tata Corporate Leadership Award, he being the only scientist to win it so far in 3 decades from India. He has been on the board of many leading companies such as Reliance, Tata Motors, Hindustan Unilever, Thermax, Piramal Industries, KPIT Technologies, etc. Dr. Mashelkar was a member of Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister for over 30 years and has been honored with Padam Shri, Padam Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan. We all know that post-pandemic, resilience and developing resilience has been the talk of the town, and it's something of interest to each and every individual, to each and every nation, including each and every company. Considering this and using the expertise, specifically the global expertise which Professor Mashelkar has on this aspect, in addition to innovation and many more, we would be requesting him to deliver his talk on 10 tenets of resilience. Sir, I welcome you on behalf of IICA and would invite you to deliver the talk, which would be followed by a Q&A session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for those kind words of introduction as well as welcome. I deem it a great privilege, great honor to have been invited to speak in this very prestigious series. I have been associated with IICA for a number of years now. In my capacity, when you honored me with an honorary professorship, I have spoken, have interacted, and have followed you with regard to the fantastic work that you are doing in terms of giving a new dimension to the entire area of corporate governance. So, special privilege. The topic that I have chosen, if you Google, this is the most sought after word, as you will find over the last 6 months to an year. And the reason for this is obvious. The reason has been the pandemic. I mean, we always talked about the VUCA word, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. But the kind of volatility, the kind of uncertainty, kind of ambiguity, the kind of complexity that came up due to the pandemic is really unheard of. Now, if you see, we can't predict the future, but can be better prepared. Crises are not new to us. We have had geopolitical crisis. Donald Trump gets elected. He changes the entire game. Now one is trying to resurrect. Brexit comes in, it creates its own, and so on and so forth. Economic slowdowns are also not new. We know about 2008 and talk about it, but they have been in 1929, 1973, 1997 too, and we have recovered. If you look at natural calamities, cyclones, tsunamis, and floods, of course, they are more common now, and we need to be worried about them in terms of the recent IPCC report. If you see, and I'll be referring to this a little later. The climate crisis, of course, the drought, the wildfires, rising sea levels, and the pandemics like the ones that we have witnessed. So what it means is that rather than an exception, this is going to be the rule in terms of living in this VUCA world. And therefore, when it comes to leadership, building resilience is going to be the most important aspect of development. Now, within that, the challenge is always what comes next. And I read this wonderful book by Farid Zakaria on 10 lessons for a post-pandemic world. And one of the things he says that my fear is COVID-19 will be the dress rehearsal, and we will have another crisis too big to handle. And he also emphatically says that COVID-19 lockdowns are a sign of failure, and they indeed are. And we have realized a number of truths. They have been laid bare, whether it is public health system and a whole range of other things. Now, people call COVID-19 the black swan. But I saw something very interesting. That is the Harvard Business Review article, which asked the following question. They said, while some have described the COVID-19 pandemic as a black swan event, in reality, it should be treated as a black elephant, a cross between a black swan and the elephant in the room. So therefore, what they suggest is that the elephant was always in the room, but we chose to ignore it. And therefore, there is a good question. What is the role of the board when they see the black elephant in the room and we don't act, right? For example, tomorrow, let us say there is a huge calamity that comes up because of cybersecurity issues. We already know that there are issues. And what are we doing about it? In fact, I'm told that India, by a really international expert, that India is the third most vulnerable country as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So what are we doing about it? We can't then throw our hands up. So we have to be prepared. That is the basic idea of this talk. Now, if you see what the boards have been doing, you will see that corporate resilience ranked low on the board agenda. Top was, of course, innovation and growth, then technological trends, organizational culture, workforce capability, organizational purpose, changing customer behavior, disruptive business model. They all got attention. But if you look at corporate resilience, that was the last on the list. And then, if you see 2020, in 2019, how prepared the boards were in terms of managing lack of corporate resilience, then you will find that very prepared in a sample of almost 100 was just 3. Very unprepared were 8, but most of them were somewhat unprepared or somewhat prepared. All right. So our preparedness was not anything to write home about. In fact, in 2019, only 1/5 believed that the lack of corporate resilience was a significant challenge for their organizations. Now that is changing dramatically. Because among respondents who said resilience was a challenge, nearly half said their boards were unprepared to manage it. And in 2020, the corporate resilience became one of the major topics. And you can see here the kind of scores that you see on corporate resilience, how it got sort of much higher weightage and others relatively less so. That does not mean that none of these are important. They're most important, but you can quite clearly see the waking up part of this entire game. Now, this is a very busy slide, but what it shows is that the mega trends after COVID-19. My slide will be with you, so the presentation will be with you, so please have a detailed sort of look on it. And what it really shows is that there are some trends which have got weakened after pandemic, some have got accelerated, and there are some new trends sort of altogether. For example, if you see accelerating digitalization of life and business, that is obvious to all of us. It was not that digitalization was not happening, but it happened so sort of rapidly, and it had its own consequences in many ways. For example, concentration of profits to digital platforms was one of them. You have seen how the tech companies have done and so on and so forth. So there have been, for example, this dispersion of urban population as an effect and so on and so forth. So I think the main point that one tries to make in this busy slide, and which is all interrelated to each other, as you say, one affects the other, is that pandemic has had a profound influence in terms of not only accelerating something, but creating new trends and overall impacting the whole ecosystem. Digitalization hits fast forward button. You can just see the way the curve actually sloped. 10 years growth in 3 months. In fact, Satya Nadella said that we are seeing 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. If you look at telemedicine, some experts have said 10 years of change in 1 week. Maybe there is an exaggeration, but it shows how this has actually happened. Real fast forward. And as I mentioned earlier, the age of the tech giants is here. The big tech companies have gains from COVID-19, which has sort of fueled the shift in demand. So it has pushed the rise of tech companies further, as we can quite clearly see. If you look at the next one, why resilience is so important now? I would say that we have less historical precedent or understanding of today's challenges, and that demands a new dimension of resilience. And this is, of course, not my saying. A political scientist, Joseph Nye, says that. And we require resilience at different levels. It is an individual resilience, it's team resilience, it is organizational resilience, and also national resilience. Now, in that particular case, if you look at individual resilience, Nelson Mandela, after 27 years of jail and solitary confinement, he was saying part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. That way lays defeat and death. To me, this is the finest example of human resilience. And those are not just the Mandelas of this world. Look at this girl, for example. All right. Now, this girl, Jyoti Kumari, she actually cycled all the way, carrying her injured father from Gurgaon to Haryana, 1,200 kilometers. All right, in 8 days. Who would have believed this, that this is possible? So resilience is not just the Mandelas of this world, it is also these girls. They are all among us, basically. The issue is, how do we ourselves develop that resilience as an individual, as an institution, as an enterprise, and so on. Now, I'm going to, of course, focus, I have separate lectures on these individuals and other things, but we will talk only about the business because all of you are interested. And this is the ability, as far as business is concerned, to withstand, to adapt, to thrive, as a matter of fact, not just survive, but succeed in the face of shocks that are internal and external, as well as known, as well as anticipated. And for that, we need to develop different kinds of mindset. Rather than looking at the protection, can we look at it as an opportunity? Rather than being reactive, can we be creative? Rather than acting as a victim, can we be agent of change? Always, rather than focusing on scarcity, looking at the possibility of the abundance and so on and so forth. So this is what we are going to talk about. Now, there are 10 tenets that one has shortlisted to become crisis resilient. The first and most obvious is adaptability. Second is agility. Third is the very thinking, the resilience thinking. The fourth is scenario-based planning. The fifth is building a purpose-driven organization because purpose matters. Platformization, being digital ready, fostering self-disruption. The ninth is being climate conscious, and not just conscious, but active, super active, I would say. And finally, autonomous innovation. So I will go through each one of these very briefly. I think the first is adaptability. The best strategy when the business environment is hard to predict and to shape. If you look at, do we shape our industry versus is it predictable? The classical part is here, just being big. Adaptive is being fast, basically. And of course, visionary is being first, okay? But then shaping the future, orchestrating it, and continuous renewal is the way. Uh, I like to give our own examples from India. For example, if I look at TCS, its revenues grew from $155 million to $21 billion. And they follow a strategy which adapts to shifts in technology, customer needs, and business environment consistently. I like the way they go about. The second is agility. Quickly adapt and respond to change. That matters a lot. For example, one of the best example I saw was Israel, by the way. They're generally very fast, but in this particular case, they're incredible. They created an open source ventilator in just 13 days at 1% of the cost of high-end ventilators. And can you just imagine, in those 13 days, they got 40 Israeli collaborators together, techies, first responders, hospitals, defense contractors, students, and they developed a ventilator from scratch. And not only that, later they released the source code to make use-friendly. So that's a remarkable example, and that has been sort of downgraded so many times into the first 6 months by it. You look at India. I don't have to give all the time from examples. I'm very proud of CSIR, the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. They were so fast in moving an innovative process chemistry, just in a record of 4 weeks. And they provided the API. Today we are crying that we are dependent upon China for the API. 70% of them come from there and so on. But they develop their own and using totally locally available chemicals. And Cipla actually started manufacturing it. And this was just affordable, just $1 antiviral repurposed drug. So we responded. In fact, I'm very proud to say, because I'm a scientist, I'm not biased towards science. I can tell you that when people talk about 2020 as the year of pandemic, I also talk about it as the year of science. The way science actually, scientists are sort of geared together to do that. I'm not talking about India in general. All right. And they showed remarkable attitude. For example, once the molecule was ready, the Cipla managers drove all the way by car from Mumbai to Hyderabad for 15 hours with packed food and water as hotels were shut because idea was to deliver. Then look at the global vaccine development. The virus was just sequenced on January 10, but by December 11, phase 1A vaccination began. It normally takes several years, basically, to design, develop, and deliver vaccine. But the way they showed the agility by global partnership was again incredible. The next one is resilient thinking itself. So designing the system to handle any unforeseen events. That means being reactive rather than being proactive rather than being reactive. By the way, as we move forward, you will hear a number of examples from Reliance. To me, the R in Reliance stands for resilience. And I know it because I've been on their board from 2007, so 14 years. Also have been chairman of the Reliance Innovation Council over a decade now. So forgive me if I keep on giving you some examples of Reliance because I couldn't find any other examples with which I was particularly familiar with. Now, if you see the resilience thinking, there's a brilliant case. Dhirubhai Ambani said, I had dreams of starting a company like Burma Shell, and he wanted to build a refinery in Jamnagar. And then the consultants came and they asked him the usual question: what specification of crude would you want us to build a refinery? He said, for all specifications. I like to refine dirt on one hand and the finest crude on the other hand. But they said this had never been done before. He said that's why we should do it. And today they actually handle 135 types of crude, from dirtiest to the best. Actually, and that's why you will find the refining margin continue to be the highest. But that was a resilient thinking, doing something which nobody had done. And of course, he was talking about Burma Shell, but I'm very proud to see that Reliance has overtaken Exxon to become the second energy firm. So here is a brilliant example of resilient thinking in the design. Then, of course, the scenario-based planning basically is a very critical one. That means making assumptions on what the future is going to be and planning accordingly. There can't be a single plan. And to me, actually, the best example is Shell. It has been developing possible visions of the future since early 1970s. And if you see their Fortune Global ranking, 95 they were 10, 2009 they were 1, 2019 they were 3. For almost 25 years to remain in the top 10 is not a joke, and they have done it. And the reason they do it is that they respond faster than any companies by virtue of its sensitivity to emerging topics, whether it's the climate change, the rise of China, the shale gas. So it is all to do with kind of anticipation. And this is a really I would say, remarkable performance. If you look at the next issue, then you will find that the future back planning based on mega trends and scenarios will be critical to succeed in future, and every board must be able to sort of do that. And the COVID-19 has thrust the entire global economy onto a new S-curve, as you can quite clearly see. And therefore, if you look at the evergreen part, which was in waves, the medium term, 3 to 10 years, these are the factors, and the long term, which are sort of more than 10 years, you can see the new rules of the games that are going to actually show up. The next is purpose driven. Finally, in life, I think individual, I always say that it is purpose, perseverance, and passion that matters. Purpose is your North Star. What is the company about? So, bulk of the time, why does an organization exist? I think is something that we don't discuss. And therefore, in this golden circle, basically, you will find that we always talk about what does the company do? How does the company do? We talk about the products that we produce. We talk about the processes that we follow. But why do we do it? There's hardly a discussion on that in the boards. And that is the purpose part of it. And there are data which I have looked at from the source, which they say that purpose-driven companies outperform the S&P 500 by 10x between 1996 to 2011. And employees with a strong sense of purpose are at least 4x more likely to engage in their jobs as others. All right. And 90% of the executives say commitment to purpose-driven leadership produces long-term financial benefits. So purpose, I think, is extremely important, and all employees must know that. I'll give you a personal example of Reliance, for example. See, the Reliance Innovation Council was formed in 2007 with me as a chairman. And we had a very powerful council. You know, we had John Mary Lane, the Nobel laureate, Bob Grubbs from Caltech, the Nobel laureate. We had C.K. Prahlad, unfortunately, he's no more. We had George Weisreich from Harvard, and so on and so forth. And there was always thinking that we should not be having the best practice, looking at best practice, because then you are copying. You have to look at the next practice, so as to say, you know, which others want to copy. So it was a bit audacious, I would say, council. And I was really privileged to chair that. And one of the things that happened was when 2008 meltdown took place, and you remember the kind of situation that we had. I remember Mukesh Bhai and I had a discussion, and he said something very interesting. He said, all hands on deck now, including you, that is me, although I was not employee of the company. And then we created what is called Mission Kurukshetra. Mission Kurukshetra was a kind of a mission where we said Kurukshetra is a battle between the good and the bad. What is good is innovation. What is bad is imitation. What is bad is inhibition. And therefore, we put this Mission Kurukshetra on three tracks: extreme efficiency, value maximization, and war on waste. And got the entire organization engaged, 2.5 lakh of people, in being a part of a solution, not being a part of a problem, and providing that. And it was almost democratization of innovation. And it was wonderful to see how some of the entire system actually worked. And we created awards, by the way. And they were also after the character of Kurukshetra, like Karna. Karna was Danashur. He had a big heart. So therefore, let's say there is a manufacturing guy who thinks about something in sales and marketing. He's not thinking about himself. He's thinking about sort of others. So it was an incredible experiment, because normally the general impression is that it's a very top-down organization. But the way the democratization at that time at least worked was incredible. But because there was a purpose that was stated on where we were. The other thing that is important is platformization. And you can see moving from products to platform is the sort of new thing. And that you can see here in a decade how the change has taken place. If you look at uh, PetroChina, ExxonMobil, Microsoft, ICBC China, and Britain, they were the top 5 companies, right? But in 10 years' time, if you see the companies, the whole thing changed. Is Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Facebook. All right. So that is a very interesting sort of development, because the platforms are powering the world's most valuable companies today. You look at Geo platform, RL had jumped from 47 places in 3 months to 51st most valuable company in the world. This was a highlight several months ago. And you can see the Geo platforms that have been created and how Geo platform is creating a sort of a history. The next one, which is very, very important, is digital reading. And here we are talking about not digitalization. We are talking about digitalization or digital transformation. So let me explain that before I move forward. Let us say you're a caterpillar, and that caterpillar gets transformed into a butterfly. That is transformation. Okay? Complete transformation. But if you look at a caterpillar and then just digitization, that means you actually digitize the existing processes in the same way in digitization. Then from a caterpillar, you are creating a faster caterpillar. So our idea is not to move from a caterpillar to a faster caterpillar. Our idea is to move from a caterpillar to a butterfly, which means total transformation. And therefore, it is not just throwing money on machines, as a matter of fact, but how machine and man works differently and together. That is the issue. So it is very fundamental, I think, that needs to be understood. So adoption of digital technologies, end-to-end digitization for value creation, of course, is becoming the key. Now, if you see digital transformation, you can quite clearly see how, for example, the key performance indicator improvements for end-to-end digitized manufacturers, if you just look at various factors, for example, productivity, sustainability, agility, speed to market, customization, etc. And you will find, for example, the productivity increase has been enormous, all right? Or you look at speed to market, that has moved, then lead time reduction, etc. So this rapid digitalization or digital transformation has brought in number of benefits that we are witnessing. Then in the post-COVID-19, the Industry 4.0 that we talked about is rapidly accelerating. As you know, Industry 1.0 was just steam engine, then came the electrical part, then we had the influx of ICT, and now we are talking about Industry 4.0. Now, there, the agility and the flexibility have gained prominence over cost. So you can see the basic change from hypothesis driven, we are moving to data driven. That is what I mean by transformation, by the way. This is a transformation. Then, rather than looking at less waste, we say no waste. Rather than saying replacing women, we are saying cyber physical production. That's why when people talk to me about digital versus physical, in fact, this dialogue is always there when the education, online education is being described. I say no, it is not going to be digital, it's not going to be physical, it is going to be phygital. All right? The door. Similarly, rather than responsive, you're predictive because digitalization allows you to that. Rather than factory bound, you become interconnected. That is the essence of Industry 4.0. Rather than repetitive production, we start having smart and flexible production. Rather than one size fits more, some, we say one size fits none, the kind of flexibility that we bring in. And so on and so forth, linear to circular, product focus to client centric, etc. So these are all fundamental changes which boards have to very carefully look at and see whether those changes are taking place. Now, if you see, the COVID-19 has accelerated Industry 4.0, so increasing maturity of Industry 4.0 implementation, as you can see, it has sort of a state jump, and more people now feel that Industry 4.0 is sort of valuable. That's a major change. The other change is that a self-adapting, self-learning, self-sustaining set of software technologies that work together to anticipate the future conditions. So, for example, self-learning, utilizing system data for accurate prediction. Self-adapting, reacting in real time to changing conditions. And self-sustaining, detecting anomalies and triggering a mitigation. I think these are all sort of happening. You look at the digital twins being created, not only for factories, but cities, by the way, in building resilient operations. And they're in diverse sectors, very successfully used, oil and gas, then renewable energy, then in transportation, in manufacturing, and so on. The next point is fostering self-disruption. Because, you know, as Sony chairman said, I like to displace my own products myself, others, my competitors will do it for me. And I think that alert has to be always there. Innovate to disrupt yourself or someone else will. So, for example, I like this book by Vijay Govindarajan. So he gives this three-part solution there. This is past. So he says, forget the past, let go of the values and practices to fuel the current business. But look at the future and creating a new future, basically. You know, managing the present is fine, optimizing the current business, but creating and reimagining return. That's why I always say that after the pandemic, we should not just be talking about recovery. There is a chance to reinvent. There is a chance to reimagine, and we must seize it at both hands. And while doing so, there is a great chance for self disruption. Look at companies like Novartis, for example. You know, over a period of time, they were an organic chemistry company. They moved into microbiology. When genomics came, they became and then now they are moving to AI, ML, big data, and they are imagining themselves, Novartis, as a medicines and data science company. They are no more an organic chemistry company. That's what I mean by continuous renewal, continuous reinvention. The other part is, of course, climate conscious, decarbonization. That's going to be very, very important. And the last IPCC report that you saw is extremely worrying. We are heading towards a crisis if we don't act. So adopting sustainability and environmentally friendly approach while doing business. So it is green growth is the only one that one has to strive for. Uh, you know, this is becoming very critical. In fact, I like to point out to you in case the you have not seen this paper. It's a phenomenal paper by my friend C.K. Prahlad, which was done decades ago, as a matter of fact. And he said why sustainability is now the key driver of innovation. Please do read this. And he said that sustainability is not a choice, it's a business imperative. I've been fortunate to be on the Hindustan Unilever board, where C.K. Prahlad was also on the board. Almost for 10 years we were together. And we saw when you were launching the Sustainable Living Plan in 2010, and in 20 it created ETS, and it was in the total supply chain. It was absolutely an incredible, I would say, the program. Climate consciousness is coming now, the key driver for innovation. It is becoming. But our own also, there is a big movement from the corporate sector in India. You remember July 16, 2020, almost a year ago, Mukesh stood there and talked about steering Reliance to green future, cutting carbon dioxide. But that was just a statement. Now that new businesses, new energy leverage with new materials is what we have said at that time. But from intention to investment in green energy is what he has done. He announced Reliance will invest 75,000 crore in 3 years towards green energy initiatives, and some audacious looking plans in terms of creating gigafactories he has had. And since 4 gigafactories that he has announced already publicly. And this is a snapshot from his presentation, which he gave on June 24. And you will see here the New Energy Council that we have created. I chair that council. And we have kind of who's who, like Mr. Solar, Mr. Wind, Mr. Carbon Capture. For example, we have here Alan Finkel, who is the mastermind behind the green hydrogen initiative of Australia. Or we have here Professor Martin Green, who created this PERC technology, which actually is incorporated in 80% of the solar installations in the world and so on. So each one of them, Bob Armstrong from MIT or Jeff Maitland. So what we have done already is that with each one of them, we have spent almost 100 minutes of conversations to validate the kind of so-called audacious plan that's what we prepared. And it was wonderful to get their sort of endorsement. So we are moving very rapidly on that. And I thought I would mention that to you because the audacious dream of producing 4 million tons of hydrogen is not a joke. It will be the biggest in the world. And his ambition is just as he gave Geo and digital access to everyone, he wants to give green energy to everyone affordably. And that seems audacious, but I'm quite sure we will deliver. But I thought I'll just give you an insight into this. I must also say that digitalization will aid decarbonization. In fact, there are 3 Ds that I always talk about: digitalization, decentralization, and decarbonization. They impact each other, as you know. And even in the hydrogen economy, when we move, I come back to the previous tenet on digitalization, how it will accelerate the hydrogen production, how it will de-risk and optimize the hydrogen value chain. Blue hydrogen, by the way, there are 3 levels of hydrogen. The first is gray hydrogen. Gray hydrogen is one which generates carbon dioxide because you take natural gas and then reform it. And when you reform it, you get hydrogen, but you also get, when you do steam reform, you also get carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is gray hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is one where you generate that carbon dioxide, but also capture it. All right, so it is not leaking here. But the green hydrogen is one where you actually use solar energy, all right, to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. All right? So ultimate aim is to move from gray hydrogen to blue hydrogen to green hydrogen. That's the ultimate sort of idea in this. The next point is that the World Economic Forum, of course, has created a coalition of public and private partners on the industry transition to set heavy industry and mobility sectors on the pathway towards zero emissions. So there is a big partnership that is going on. I'm delighted to sort of see that. And the final point, my favorite, is of course innovation, autonomous innovation, and particularly making innovation as a way of life. And there are data, by the way, innovating during crisis triggers faster recovery. So it shows, as a matter of fact, if you look at the normalized market capitalization, not only did through crisis innovators outperform the crisis by 10%, but they also outperformed the market by upwards of 30%, as you can quite clearly see. So innovation, innovation, and innovation. I always say the I in India must stand for innovation. I in every industry must stand for innovation, not for imitation, and that is absolutely vital. I like to end within the next 3-4 minutes. Uh, you know, I'm not trying to advertise the book, but link my book to this. This is a book called Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting that I and Ravi Pandit published in 2019. And the idea was a very simple one, by the way. It came also during a discussion with Mukesh Bhai. Mukesh Bhai was saying, Doc, we must leapfrog in some place. So I said, let's rethink. Why does the frog leap? Because he's afraid of his predators, of his enemy. How much did he jump? A few feet. So should we, being afraid of the competitors, uh, just jump a few feet proactively to place of safety? Or should we pull out? The size of the pole determines the size of your aspiration. That is how this idea of leapfrogging to pole vaulting came. And within Reliance, we created a program called Beyonders, by the way. Young people who are capable of thinking beyond the possibility. Just 30 people out of 250,000, etc. Now, this book, actually, I'm very sort of happy to say, won the best book, business book of the year award in Tata Live sort of festival. And there, I want to emphasize that my chapter 3 actually gives a particular framework. Because when we pole vault, somebody asked me, you pole vault, but how do you make sure that you don't break your back when you land? So therefore, for assured success, we have created what is called the assured framework. And that framework basically is a simple one. It is, first of all, affordable. And if you are affordable, of course, you become scalable. You have to be also sustainable, though. And sustainability has three components. One is, of course, the economy, robust business model, revenue model, can't depend upon government subsidies. Governments change, subsidies change. Environmental, green is the only way to go. Societal, I mean, you may have something, but society doesn't accept the technology. It will not work like the GM or like the onshore wind or like the nuclear. Similarly, then universal, user-friendly customer that you all know very well. Uh, Rapid, and now you can say maybe resilient as a little PR. Excellence in technology is extraordinarily important. And then finally, distinctive. Uh, because it's not me too. You know, my dream is always don't brag about being first in India. Have something which is ahead of the rest of the world. And this is an interesting matrix. And you'll see in my book, for example, we have shown that you need to be assured all the time. If you are not, like for example, Napster, which is a free download of music, so free it was affordable. It had 60 million users, so it is scalable. Both these were there, but does Napster exist today? No, because it failed in all the other, some of the other, because it was not sustainable. because the Society of Musicians said, you can't download my music free. They're gone. Similarly, BlackBerry, as you can see, I mean, the older generation would know more about it, like my generation. They were hot. But what happened? When touchscreen came, they were still sticking around with their printing board and keypad and the rest of it, etc. They did not remain sort of this way, and they are no more. And like that, we have looked at several companies which were considered as successful, one way or the other, but they were not. And therefore, what one is saying, like for example, Google Glass, it was distinctive, it was excellent, but it was not affordable. It was not user friendly because when you are wearing it, you don't know whether you are recording the speech, or when you enter a cinema theater, you don't know whether you're recording that, etc. It failed. On the other hand, something like Jio, for example, was it affordable? Yes. 4 rupees per GB is the cheapest, and voice free. Scalable, yes. Now 450 million customers. Sustainable, yes. You saw the profitability. Universal, yes. User friendly. Both these ladies are using it. Rapid, yes. In 83 days, they had 50 million customers. They hold the world record now. Excellent, yes. 4G LTE technology, the ultimate, and distinctive, yes, in terms of variety of innovations, including business model. So, in order to remain resilient, I think this is a good matrix to follow sort of all. Finally, I like what our Prime Minister has talked about, giving us a mandate to create an Atmanirbhar Bharat. I personally believe that we can create this Atmanirbhar Bharat with Atmavishwas if we sort of guarantee the assured resilience in the framework that we have created. That is 46 minutes, 1 minute more than I had planned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Mashelkar. It was really very engaging and insightful, delivery, and the way you had helped us travel through all these 10 tenets, I would like to call as 10 key mantras for achieving resilience, which is the central purpose of individuals or corporate life. Definitely, we could rapidly reach to the desired level. And as you have rightly mentioned, Atmanirbhar Bharat, we can also, be successful in aligning our initiatives, our actions towards that in the interest of nation. Because national integrity is on the top. We are in August, just 2 days away from the Independence Day. So I'm sure the fervor is on. So I think this could be the best commitment we all can take. Anyway, I could see a lot of noise in the chat box, and our directors are really appreciating the talk in terms of bowing before you, saying it excellent, brilliant, and so on. I'm sure we all endorse that and resonate. Now, I would like to invite friends for the question answer session. And if we can have raised hands, you can raise your hands in front of the camera so that I can see, and we can unmute and we can take up the questions one by one. I have Pankaja first to go. Pankaja.
Hello, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
very
can
much.
Hear. I can hear.
Mashelkar, very inspiring. So thank you so much for that. Now, I'm a researcher by my education and now at the persistent systems in the corporate world. And I'm currently very inspired by the concept of social business. Now, you are the expert in this entire domain. So I was thinking whether in the post-COVID era, where innovations take a new turn, do you see social business as something happening in a big way to tackle issues like malnutrition in India? Perhaps you could be the Krishna of the social business yadnya in India.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's an outstanding question. In fact, that's exactly what India needs. You know, there are two separate aspects. One is there's some background noise.
Can
Yeah,
we uh, can we have the mics muted, please, dear participants, except those who are asking questions?
yeah. So, if I may sort of simplify it, Pankaja, there are two separate aspects. One is doing well and doing good. That means you make a lot of money and then you say, oh my God, what did I do for the poor? And you create a trust or a foundation. Like Bill Gates, for example, he made a lot of money and then he created a great foundation. No question about it. That is doing well and doing good. But there is other aspect, which is doing well by doing good. That means doing good itself is a business. Okay. Now, it's interesting that I'm seeing now the startups. I'm in very close touch with the startup community, young people, and so on and so forth. So in my mother's name, I have created what is called as Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award. Okay, this is the 11th year of the award. Each of the awardees is doing social business. What? How? They are making high technology work for the poor. But the way they sort of have created an impact is absolutely incredible. It's a great business. Each one of them is so successful. I'll just give you one example because it happens to be here. One of the awardees, Rahul Rastogi. Okay, his father had a heart ailment and he had to be taken to a hospital in the middle of the night, 10, 15 kilometers. So he said, my God, why do I have to? Can I not create a portable ECG? He was an electronics wizard, by the way. And he created a portable ECG. Here it is. You can buy it, by the way, from Amazon, Sanket, it is called. How does it work? It's as simple. I'm explaining to you the social business part of it. So the way it works is that there are two sensors here. You put your two thumbs for 15 seconds. Okay. This is your heart. Okay. And you have this sensor that you see 15, 15, 15 seconds, 15, 15, 15 seconds. And if you have downloaded an app called Sanket, the ECG goes to you. And it is FDA certified. It's a 12 lead equivalent, by the way, ECG that you get. And he has already sold 20 lakh of these, by the way, across 8 countries. Okay. We gave him the award 4 years ago. So he's making great business. But at the same time, imagine the implication of this. We talk about health for all. We talk about rural poor. Imagine a rural woman, an old woman, getting a heart pain at night. She had to be put in a bullock cart or a motorcycle and taken a few kilometers away. Doesn't have to. As long as there is a connectivity, basically. This is like using an advanced thermometer. And it goes to the best expert possible. By the way, you can mail it to the best expert possible. So here, it is making high technology, and there is a high technology involved in this. Work for the poor. And there are other examples like Mir Shah creating $1 based cancer scanning, which is non-invasive. You don't have that painful this thing, etc. $1 using high technology. And he has partnered with G Life Sciences. They are going to 25 countries, going to millions, basically. And he's doing sort of a great business. So I think it is all sort of this wish of doing well by doing good, so as to say. And in all these, we are actually writing case studies for all 11, by the way. We are going to publish this book. One thing that has come is empathy. They're all driven by empathy, by the way. Okay. And I'll tell you why it is going to be sort of important in time to come. I'll just say a couple of sentences there. See, for example, today we have a crisis. What is the crisis that we have? When 1.6 billion children went out of school, 1/3 of them did not have access to online. And today you see, last June, I have seen 6 children committing suicide because they did not have smartphones, etc. But there, can we not create an affordable, let us say, tablet? And we had created. Computer was created in 2001. All right, Akash was displayed in $35, etc., etc. Now, taking up something like this and government supporting it and making it to finally a sort of social business can make all the difference. Because what has happened is that the situation has changed completely now. In my time, I was born in a poor family. I walked barefoot until 12. I studied under street lights. It was a Tata scholarship of 60 rupees, which made it possible for me. Today, you give that scholarship, that is not good enough. You have to also give the sort of all these sort of access. So therefore, one of the worst crises that we are going to have, we always talk about climate change. One of the worst crises that is coming up is rising inequalities. In fact, the World Bank report shows that within the first 100 days, 100 million families went from poverty to extreme poverty, poverty to extreme poverty. What does it mean? That means these are the kind of areas that we have to sort of get into, because an unequal world will create social disharmony, so as to say. And this has to remain a priority. So this is my short take. And in case you are interested more in this, if you kindly go to my website, www.mashelkar.com, you will find a lot that I have written on this, talked about this, and so on. So thank you for asking this, because I could cover something I could not cover in my main lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Who would like to go? We can have next question. Yeah, Mr. Kompella. Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah. Very good evening, sir. It's a pleasure hearing you. I've been hearing about you, but it's first time that I had the opportunity of present when you deliver such a wonderful talk. Yeah, sir. My very small clarification. It is lingering in my brain. When you want to build this resilience, where do you look at actually to cultivate it or to scale it, or internally look for the sources to strengthen it, or you need a facilitator from outside?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was unable to understand the thrust of
suppose, sir, we are as an organization, we know this resilience, basically it is a part of, ultimately, in every walk of life, resilience is necessary. But in an organizational context, to improve your resilience to different disturbances around, you look for the strength from within, or you need an external facilitator to help you in the process to scale up your resilience?
I would say it is not either or. It is both. It is both. I'll tell you something interesting. When I took over as Director General of CSIR, there were 40 laboratories. Okay, you cannot believe it. 40 laboratories behaved like there were 40 laboratories. You get my point? And therefore, I said nothing doing. It is one CSIR, all right? And I did a number of things, by the way. You may find that in Jayan Narlikar's book, Scientific Age, he has given the top 10 scientific achievements of Indian science and technology, starting from Ramanujan and Raman and so on. The 10th is CSI transformation, that where we created kind of one CSI. So it was almost like giving them a common purpose, So what happens is that when you have an organization in individuals, the analogy is that of magnetic needles. Okay, so you take a piece of paper, and one needle is pointing this direction, one needle is pointing in this direction, one needle is pointing this direction. What you do is that when you give it purpose, and that is where we had created CSR Vision 2003. I remember we created that. And entire, like a magnet, then the entire needles, they get all aligned in the same direction. So you do require that, That's why you will find in the book my leapfrogging to pole vaulting. I have looked at some big challenges, big issues, and how you can get. A nation can be galvanized. When, for example, Kennedy said, "Man on the moon," there were just 4 words, but the whole nation was aligned. So that external force, external leadership. In fact, I don't mind sort of giving an example from my childhood. I went to a very poor school because my mother couldn't get the 21 rupees that were required to get admission. It took 21 days, and I remember she borrowed it from somebody who was doing some housemaid's work. So I went to a post school, but it had rich teachers, and one of them was Principal Bhave. So what Principal Bhave did was he did not believe in chalk and talk, by the way. He would see and learn and do and learn, etc., etc. So one of the experiments he did, I want to sort of explain because it is linked to your question. He took us out into the sun. He had this convex lens, and he showed to us how to find the focal length. So you hold that in the sun, and sun's rays come, and then they are converged on a piece of paper. All right. So he held a piece of paper, moved it up and down, and then the paper burnt at a point in time. He said, "This is," and then he said, like this. If you focus, you can achieve anything in the world. So it gave me two lessons. One was science is so fantastic, I must become a scientist. Second, focus and you can achieve. But as I grew, I saw something else. I saw that sun's rays are parallel. And you will remember your sort of the principles of mathematics, that parallel lines never meet, right? What does the convex lens do? It makes them meet. So, despite, therefore, if you can see the current crisis in the country, for example, race, religion, etc., we are not converging. We are having concave lens. Concave lens actually disperses. We require. So this convex lens, on one hand, as an analogy, or a magnet on the other hand, these two analogies will tell you how the external forces can. Now they will, when you give in to say that, yes, my India, one India, or my institution, whatever sort of you're talking about, etc. That comes later. But I think that the external force, I'm a great believer in that.
Thank you, sir. Sir, but a supplementary small one, if you kindly permit. Sir, is it that is high time that we refocus on the fundamental sciences now?
I think, see, today we boast about, I boasted just now as a scientist that within 1 year we got this vaccine, right? But if you look at the mRNA vaccine, how did it come? That mRNA was a result of hundreds of PhDs investment into fundamental science done over so many years. And now you are benefiting from that. It just did not come like that, So any country which does not support fundamental science, basically, they don't have a future. Our future lies in fundamental science. Of course, you have to create a societal good for that. Like this device that I showed, again, has a deep science in it, by the way, by which this is sort of able to do that. So science and its application, but if you don't make advances in fundamental science, you will not get what we're getting. And there are new challenges which have to be met. And for that, we talk about coronavirus and the variants. For example, we have talked about alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. But day before yesterday, I got from Bill Hasseltine, who's a great guru from US, the lambda variant that has come, basically. And again, you have to deal with that. So for dealing with all these uncertainties of the future, you will not require just the known science. You'll have to create new science. And you have to keep on investing. That's the point.
Thank you, sir, for answering this question.
Sorry, I'm privileged to see Dr. Karthikeyan here. Namaskar, sir. It's a privilege to have you. You have to unmute.
Such a joy to listen to you after seeing you after a long time. After I would admire all the time. Thank you for recognizing me among the wonderful.
How can I not? You have inspired me.
You are the inspiration for the whole nation, for the whole world, actually. In fact, after this, I'm writing to you.
Thank you.
Kindly answer me.
I will.
Thank you very much.
I see my friend Chaya Saigal. I see so many friends here.
Yes. But
Great.
I feel privileged to be recognized by you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Fritz, who would like to go next, please? So there is a question I was reading in the chat box by Mr. JP Dash. What he wants to understand with your experience, like India as a nation, how India can improve upon the innovation systems in the country and create companies like Apple here in India.
Yeah, I think there's a simple answer to that. I think we have to basically create a strong tripod of what I call as talent, technology, and trust. India's greatest advantage is its talent. You know, I remember Atalji used to say India's future is in IT, IT as in information technology. I used to say, yes, India's future is in IT, but IT as in Indian talent. As simple as that. That is our greatest advantage. Are we reaping benefits from that? Yes, as well as no. Not to the extent that we could. For example, the value of Indian talent has been recognized by multinational companies. Today, there are more than 1,200 corporate R&Ds of multinationals, employing more than 3 lakh Indians right here in India. Indian IQ is generating IP for them, right? 1/3 of IP in many sort of companies is getting generated right here in Bangalore of this world from here. But if you look at the performance of our Indian industry in terms of generating IP, you don't figure in the sort of top 10, even in the patents granted in India. So how do we recognize that talent and valorize it here? That is the one part, the talent, the technology. But the most important part of it is trust. When you talk about somebody like Bill Gates, I'll tell you, I had about 10, 12 years ago, I was on the Microsoft External Research Advisory Board in Seattle and also on the Microsoft India Advisory Board here, which Ravi Venkatesan used to run. And we were invited for a lunch with him. I mean, sorry, dinner with him, dinner come discussion. Myself was there, Anand Mahindra and Nandan Nilekani, some of us. And he told us an interesting story that will tell you the importance of the tripod. He said he was invited to give in Harvard University the commencement lecture. And he declared himself as the most successful dropout from Harvard. And he narrated an interesting story that when he was young, 18, 19, that was the time a company in Mexico started producing hardware. These were the early days of computers. So he said, if they are doing hardware, they will require software. So he phoned them up. And while phoning up, he thought they will keep the phone down. Because he said, you are developing hardware, I will give you the software. Now, 18, 19-year-old, you know what they said? Wait, we are not ready, come after a month. And what Bill Gates said was interesting. He said, you know, I did not have the software that I was offering you. Now, here's the trust part of it. Here was the talent in Bill Gates. Here was the technology. Obviously, he could build the software. But there was a trust. They had that trust that 18, 19-year-old will, and he had the trust in himself that he will deliver. I think in India, the talent, technology, and the trust part of it, the trust part is basically the issue. Therefore, risk-taking, betting on the, etc. If you look at my Anjani Mashelkar inclusive user, what is, there is a very classic case of Dr. Naveen Khanna of ICGB, who created a dengue test, by the way. Dengue, I hope none of you had dengue, but if you had, you will find that it takes 1 to 2 days before you know whether you have dengue. He created one where in 50 minutes you could find remarkable markers. Very affordable, certified patterns, everything. Nobody would look at it because we are all dependent upon the imports from US, from South Korea and Australia. Then a pandemic broke up. When the pandemic broke up, we did not have any, I mean, we were rapidly running out of kits. So we had to go, run to these 3 countries, out of which US said we can't do it in the time that you are giving. Australia said we can't. Only South Korea said we will. And what happened was that they loaded those kits on a wrong ship and it went to Africa. It did not come to India. So we were left with no kits. There was no other option but to go for Navin Khanna's. Navin Khanna's market share at that time was 0%. Today it is 78%. And I'm quite sure if the ship had come, it would still be 0%. What does that mean? Talent, technology, and trust. Creating those systems, I think, is going to be the key point. If we do that, then I think the kind of strength that we have is. I'm a great believer. People call me a dangerous optimist. I am a dangerous optimist because I believe in this IT as in Indian talent. Okay.
Great. So talent, technology, and trust are 3 keywords as you have placed forward, sir. Who would like to go next with the question, please? I didn't see much questions in the chat box. Any more questions? I think, sir, we don't have more questions. Just one thing, sir, which if you allow me, I got triggered with the 3 points you have mentioned: talent, technology. We have trust is something which is lacking. So in spite of the fact that India has talent, we had been on and off hearing and reading about, Jugaad, the Indian way of doing innovations. And in fact, there are a lot many international authors who have, books on that particular aspect. So having talent and technology also in place, why through some public partnership, public-private partnership, why some mechanism we could not develop over a period of time so that the trust element could also be infused and the existing talent and technology could be honed up?
Well, I would put it. Let me make 2 comments on this. The first is that I hate the word jugaad. Jugaad is making things happen somehow. No respect for safety, nothing else excepting for the past. So, unfortunately, that word has been made popular by certain authors of Indian origin, and I don't like us to be called a Jugaadu nation at all. I like to look at India as a great country which does affordable excellence. Nobody, I'm a tennis guy, 10 times better, 10 times cheaper. India has the capability of doing that. But it is excellence. It is excellence. It is not, you got a vehicle just 4 or 5 years ago, killed 11 people. It just collapsed. This is not what we want to do. We should not be taking pride in the fact that washing machine is being used for lassi and all that, etc. It is wrong. We have to look at the sort of innovations of the kind that I'm describing. That is the first point that I would like to make. I stand different from this point. I know these books, Navi Raju and others, etc. In fact, I'll tell you, it is very interesting that in Cambridge University, there is a Judge Business School, and they had the inaugural lecture on innovation supported by British Petroleum. And I gave the one at that time. Navi Raju was there. I had talked to him. That is where the Google innovation, I had coined the term Gandhian engineering, getting more from less for more people. Basically, that has become quite popular. My paper with C.K. Prahlad, Harvard Business Review, July, August, innovations, holy grail, more from less for more. It is now ranked among the top 10. So I had discussions with these young people, and they created a brilliant book. But the headline, the title, and jugaad, I think that is not the way sort of India thinks. India is capable of big things, like we did the Mars orbiter mission. All right. First time successful, and at a cost which was 1/10. That was affordable excellence. Excellence because going to Mars is not a joke, and affordable because it was 1/10 of the US. That is the India of my dreams. Affordable excellence, not somehow or the other putting things together. As far as public-private partnership are concerned, yes, I will give you examples. And there again, talent, technology, and trust. Let me elaborate on that. I remember when I was the Director General of CSIR, in year 2000, I got a call from Mr. Yashwant Singh. He said, this is the first year of the new millennium. We want to start something which is exciting. Can you propose something that is exciting? I said, sir, how much time do I have? He said, 30 minutes. Normally, within 30 minutes. And I remember talking about, creating what is called as a new millennium Indian technology leadership initiative. Leadership, not following, leadership. I sent it to him, he loved it, and then they asked how much, and I said just 50 crore because it was gambling. When you talk about leadership, you're doing something for the first time, you're not following somebody, basically. And interestingly, we gave grand challenges, all right? This was a public-private partnership. You talk about public-private partnership, I'll tell you. In fact, when I left on 31st December 2006, we had more than 100 private sector companies, more than 250 institutions partnering with each other. What it was doing was that it was giving grand challenges, which are very important for the country. Okay? Like tuberculosis. It gets cleared in 6 to 8 months. Can you do it in 2 months? The reason is that they poor start taking tablets, their appetite comes back, and they stop taking tablets. And then you get disease resistance. Challenges of this kind which are and it is incredible what that this is. But the money that was given to the private sector, by the way, was at 0% interest. I had proposed, but when it went to cabinet, they made it 3%, but it was very low because interest rates were very high. But to be returned only if they are successful. It was not venture capital, it was adventure capital. Okay, and the institutions will get a grant, and together they work. And let me give you one example just to finish the point on talent, technology, and trust. Bioinformatics was a big word. But Acceleris, the best software, was $500,000. Small biotech companies couldn't afford it. So I remember going to Vidyasagar, TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, Senior Vice President, and I'm a 10x guy. I said, look, this is Acceleris. You have to make it 10 times cheaper and 10 times better. He was also crazy like me. He said, done. Why did I go to him? Because they knew how to make a product. But they did not have biology. Tata did not have biology of the kind that we needed. So we lined up 19 laboratories, like Center for Cellular Molecular Biology and so on. Together, we put $5 million, and within 18 months, they came out with BioSoup, which was launched in San Francisco in bio. Now, here is the important point about talent, technology, and trust. Talent, we had. Yes, we could beat them, do 10x. Technology, yes, very sophisticated technology was there. But trust was there. Nobody at that time, I remember when Vidyasagar went to his board, they said, why are you robbing poor CSI, we'll give you that. He said, no, I'm getting access to 19 laboratories. Talent. When I went to my board, they said, you are giving money to rich Tatas. I said, no, I'm seducing them to come into this. And everybody trusted. All right? The important part is that I did not float a tender at that time and waited for 2 years to sort of give to the lowest registered. There was this thing, I said, PCS are the best. Can I do it today? This is the big issue. Because appearing to be right has become more important than being right. That's what I mean by talent, technology, and trust. It is not that public-private partnership. Limitly, MITLI, by the way, please go on the website and see. This is the biggest one, but it was based on trust. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for answering to my question. And I'm really happy and agree to your perspectives on Jugaad. Now, there is one last question I would like to take, and I'm sure it's a $1 million question. How do you see India in 2050?
Oh my God. I have, if you sort of read my book, it is called Reinventing India. Okay, so you will have to read this book to read my dream about what it will be in 2050. I have sort of expressed a desire on this that I don't know, I'm now 78 going to 79. I don't know how many years I'm left with. But I had expressed a public wish that take away all the remaining, but allow me to come in 2050 for one day to see my India. By the way, if I know that as a scientist, I should not be speaking like that. No, 2050, I personally feel, I mean, better to talk about 100 years of independence, 20, sort of 47. I personally believe that we will be an economy which will be the US, China, and India would be at the top with the kind of living standard that will be comparable to the sort of Western world. I think we are going through a bit of a dip, but it will basically come back. And the reasons are obvious. Our natural endowments in many, many different ways. You know, our major challenge is our continual battle of mind versus mindset. Our minds are going into the 21st century. Our mindsets are holding us back, and you can see every day, open the newspaper, open a TV, etc. My dream is if we really were one India, Team India, and every day say that India matters to me, I want to matter to India more. I have no doubt that will be the India of my dreams in 2050. That will come.
Professor Gupta, may I give the last question? Karthikeyan here.
Yeah, sure, sir. Please.
Sir, I am addressing Dr. Mashelkar. I have known you, seen you since decades. You have the same enthusiasm, energy, grace, charm. What is the secret of this?
Okay, good. I don't know. You know, I'll tell you something interesting. You know, what happened was, as you know, Professor C.N.R. Rao, right?
Yes.
Bharat Ratna. So he's one of my gurus and mentor, and whatever I am is because of you know he has done a lot. So I'll tell you an incident and then tell you the secret. So what happened was that I became fellow of Royal Society. Now, fellow of Royal Society, as you know, after Nobel Prize, there are two things which are considered as the highest. You sign in the same book where Newton has signed.
Yes.
And as you know, in 360 years, there are only 3 engineering scientists who have become fellow of Royal Society. Myself, Professor Sharma, and Ruddam Narasimha passed away.
Oh, yes. I know.
Yeah. So it is a high honor, by the way. So I phoned him up. I said, sir, I'll become FRS. You know what was his response? Not bad. No, when he said not bad, I was disappointed, you know. Then I became fellow of American Academy of Arts and Science. From 1780, you know, Benjamin Franklin and George Washington had created it. And 200 Nobel laureates are its members, and you know, from Charles Darwin to Winston Churchill to Nelson Mandela, all these people, and only 7 Indians from 1780. I was the 7th. So I said, now he will. So I phoned him up. His response once again, not bad. Then American National Academy of Inventors. Then I was the first one, not 3rd, 7th, etc., etc. So I said, now he will say great. He said, not bad. Then I got upset. I said, sir, what do I have to do to impress you? What he said at that time is what keeps me going, I'll tell you. What he said was that he calls me Ramesh. You know, people who are close to me call me Ramesh, as you know. He says, Ramesh, you are climbing on a ladder of excellence. That is limitless. The only limit is what you put on your yourself. In other words, what he was saying was that no matter what you achieve, your best is your to. Is what you have to do. So my message to young people, I tell them, whether you are 18 or 80, when you get up in the morning, you have to say every day, my best is yet to come, and maybe today is the day it will be. And when I say my best is yet to come, it's not for myself. Maybe what I do for my notion, for my society. I do that. I do that because I feel, in fact, somebody asked me, I got 24/7, by the way. After this, I have 3 more programs after this. Okay. So somebody asked me, why are you working so hard? I said, when I was 28, I had 50 years to do what I want to achieve. After 78, I don't know even I have 5 years or not, so I have to work harder. All right. So these two put together is the answer for you.
Wonderful.
Is to come.
Yes,
That's it.
remain like for many more decades.
Yeah. One more statement, Dr. Neeraj, with your permission. Sir, sir, you have always been my inspiration right from the time I knew you from early 80s. And you are the same, just the same. And whatever talk you deliver, whether it's technical or anything, you connect so well with the audience. In fact, most of them do not have any questions, but the way you cover everything, I think I can only say one thing to you.
You're so kind. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure to be associated with you, sir. Really, I cherish the personal letter you wrote to me after the award of my degree. I value it more than the degree that has been awarded by IISc.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Great. So it was really very enriching, interesting discussion. Great questions and fantastic responses, which are really full of, I would say, they are the extracts of the exposure, experience, and learnings you have gathered over a period of time. I'm sure that will really pave a great way to us to be resilient, to stand up, to be innovative, and contribute to the nation. One underlying message which across all your responses I could collect by connecting the dots is that we should try to be resilient, innovative, uh, mm, for one single purpose, as you were defining the corporate purpose. So we all, as individuals as well as companies, have a sole purpose to contribute to the nation. That will all only make India a great nation in 2050. Definitely, the book you have mentioned, we would be happy to refer to it. I personally would read it and would definitely share what my learnings are out of it. So that's really fantastic. So I think this is the time, if you allow, I would like to close. It was fantastic discussion, and more so, it was really encouraging having more than 150 directors listening to the discourse and participating. I'm sure the deliberations you have made, the learnings you have shared are going to help us move forward, and we would try to act as agents of change, taking your learnings forward so that they create the real impact in the country. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you all dear participants for joining us, sparing your valuable time. We would be coming back with the next talk next week. Till then, bye bye. Keep yourself safe and stay healthy. Very good evening to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.